Hey everyone, welcome to this particular video, and this is day 1 of AWS series. So I'll try to have a weekly schedule wherein I post videos day wise, and you will have a day wise plan basically. So these videos are designed in day wise format, so you will at your end have day wise format which will make it easier for you to study. Okay. So let us begin talking about what we are going to cover in this video. So here first we are going to begin with the ultra basics, which is we'll understand cloud computing. Then we'll talk about AWS essentials and setup, and then we'll dive into the billing on AWS. Now billing is very important, okay, because AWS charges you for all the resources that you have used, and it's a per usage basis charge. Okay, so depending on how you use the services, that is how you're billed at the end. And also they have a very generous free tier as well. So if you're thinking that I'll have to pay to AWS to learn from this course, it's not that way. Okay, I'll make sure you understand billing, how billing works, but you'll be making use of free trial, and they have a very generous free trial, trust me. And yeah, you will have sufficient free stuff for you to master AWS. Okay, so we are going to understand billing in AWS because this is also going to be important if you're working on real world project or if you're building some sort of POCs or any production grade applications. Okay, so billing is important. We'll understand how you can manage budgets and billing. This will involve a cost explorer and everything, and understanding from which services you are being billed. So everything around billing is what will be covered over here. Then we'll dive into identity and access management, which is IAM. Now, IAM is a service using which you can manage users, groups, roles, and a lot of other stuff. So everything around access in AWS is managed through this service, IAM. So if you're working on in a real world project, IAM becomes very important because a lot of people would generally have access to AWS resources, and what access level they should have or what access level they should not have, how you can control it, what are groups, how you can group users together with similar access roles, and what are roles in fact. So all of this is covered over here. Then we'll talk about, we'll go hands-on wherein we understand IAM, users, setting them up, groups, setting them up, all of that. Then we'll talk about root account hardening, okay, how you can make your root account even more secure and some strategies around it. So this is what we are going to cover, and yes, everything is hands-on. And yes, as a fees to enroll into this course, I would encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, share with people who are in need with such a series. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right in. So now it's time that we begin talking about cloud computing and understand what it is. So here on my screen, you can see the definition of cloud computing. Okay, so cloud computing is basically using computers, storage, software over the internet instead of owning and managing them on your own computer. Okay, so let me explain this better. Okay, so if you take a look at this term over here, okay, which is cloud computing. Okay, so you can see there are two words within this single statement or single thing over here, right? Cloud computing has two words. One is cloud, and then you have computing. Now, what do you mean by cloud? So cloud means over the internet, and computing means the computing that you do, the processing and storage and everything that you do over the cloud. So cloud computing is basically doing computing over the cloud. Okay, so let me explain this even better and let me make it clear over here. Okay, so when you talk about cloud over here, you are already using cloud daily, okay, in your daily life without realizing it. Okay, now if I have to give you an example of cloud, you must be making use of Google Drive, right? You must be making use of Dropbox. You must be making use of Gmail, Outlook, Netflix, YouTube, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. These are all the services that you are making use of over the cloud. Now, what is Gmail? Gmail is nothing but it's a email service or a software that runs on the cloud, and you are making use of it, right? Are you installing Gmail onto your system? Not really. You're making use of it over the internet. It's hosted somewhere and you're using it, right? You are never updating Gmail. So if the software is installed onto your local system, you will have to update it whenever there is a new version release, right? So are you updating Gmail ever? Are you getting the latest version of Gmail ever? No, it's automatically updated to the latest version. You are not installing it onto your system. It's basically available to you over the internet. Okay, so that is what cloud is. Okay, and computing meaning it's just you are making use of processing over here, right? Now, cloud itself, cloud has this thing of doing things over the cloud has gained a lot of popularity, like in the last like 20 years or so, right? And if you see, there are tons of benefits over here with this term cloud over here. It's accessible everywhere. You just need internet to access anything that's hosted over the cloud. You pay as you go, right? So basically, if you're making use of something over the cloud, you pay as you go, and it's not like you have to purchase entire thing at one go, but it will be sort of a monthly subscription, or as you use it, right? It's scalable, right? So you can increase or decrease the capacity. So on Gmail, Google Drive, you can buy more storage and decrease the storage as well over a period of time, right? There is good security, and there is no maintenance from your end, right? So it has gained a lot of popularity. Now, when we talk about cloud, so I'm just talking about cloud right now, and we'll go a little bit deep over here. So I'll just duplicate this over here. I'll come over here, okay, and I'll just get rid of computing for now, okay, for a while. Now, when we talk about cloud over here, okay, so there are three main categories when it comes to cloud services. So I'll better get rid of this, and I'll create this in a rectangle. Okay, so I'll say over here, I'll come over here and I'll say cloud. Okay, and there are three main types of services is what I meant to say. So first is SaaS. Okay, we'll understand all of this. Other is PaaS. Okay, or I should write it like this. Okay, and this should be written SaaS like this, and the other one we have is IaaS. Okay, so let me talk about SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. So what is SaaS? SaaS stands for Software as a Service. So if I have to say, it's Software as a Service, like so. Okay, and yeah, this is what it is, right? So what is SaaS? It's Software as a Service. Now, what does Software as a Service mean over here? Software as a Service means that you are making use of software as a service, like the name says, Software as a Service. Okay, so you have software that is already built over the internet, and you are just making use of it. You are not installing the software onto your system, right? And examples that you can think of it is Gmail, Google Docs, Zoom, Canva. All of these examples are software as a service, because you are not installing anything. You are not setting up anything. You are just accessing a URL over the internet. You just need internet connection, and you are using the software in your browser. Think of Canva, think of Gmail, think of Google Docs, right? Canva basically is a full-fledged, you can create images in the browser itself, right? But are you installing anything locally? Not really. You are just making use of Canva in the browser over the cloud, right? So that is software that is presented to you as a service, right? And this is a category of cloud, right? So cloud services have three main categories. Like I said, SaaS, PaaS, which is platform as a service, and then you have IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. Software as a service, you are clear, right? You get access to software as a service. Now, what is PaaS over here? Right, so okay, so I'll just highlight this a bit so that we know this is at the center. Now, what is PaaS? Okay, this is not highlighting, I don't know why, but that's fine. Yeah, what is PaaS, which is platform as a service? Now, what does platform as a service mean over here? So platform as a service means that you are making use of platform, and you're using it for your own use as and when needed. Okay, so basically, what is a platform? A platform is basically something wherein you can build and run your applications. Okay, so you can think of stuff like Google App Engine or Heroku, right? So if you take a look at Heroku gives you a platform wherein you can just host your applications, right? And you don't have to manage the servers and all. Okay, so it's platform as a service. Now, you don't have to manage the platform. This is one very important distinction over here, right? So in platform as a service, you don't manage the servers. So for example, if you are building something solo, let's say I have an idea and I decided to build something on myself, right? And I don't have a team right now. So I don't want to hire people and they will be managing servers and all. I don't want to do that, right? I want to build things very lean. So what I would do is I would choose a service that is offering me platform as a service. For example, Heroku. Heroku is one such thing wherein you can sign up for Heroku. You can connect a GitHub repository or any sort of Git repository, and then basically whatever code you're pushing to Git repository is going to be published, right? And you don't have to manage servers. If your traffic increases, you can scale up the servers. If your traffic is decreasing, you can scale down. So all of that with just one click. You don't need a big team basically to manage the entire server stack and technology and all of that. You just build and ship. That is it. The platform is taken care of by Heroku itself. Okay, so that is platform as a service, wherein you are given access to platform as a service, and you have all the software installed on the platform. And if you want any specific software to be installed, you can do that as well. Okay, then comes IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. Now, what is IaaS? Now, here you don't get platform as a service, but you get infrastructure as a service. So let me copy this, and here let me add something over here like so. So instead of platform, you can say infrastructure like so. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just expand it like this. Okay, like so. So infrastructure as a service. Now, what does this mean? So here in platform as a service, you were renting a platform, right? But here you are not renting a platform, you are renting a infrastructure. Okay, what do you mean by infrastructure? So to run your application, you are going to need a server, you're going to need networking abilities, you're going to need storage. So you are renting raw infrastructure. Okay, and this is suitable if you have the ability to manage the infrastructure on your own, because if you are renting the infrastructure, you are going to need DevOps engineers, you're going to need server engineers, you're going to need someone who is managing your servers, taking care of them, scaling when traffic is high, scaling down when traffic is low. So all of that you will have to do if you are making use of infrastructure as a service. Okay, so platform as a service, I gave you the example of Heroku. You have Google App Engine. But when it comes to infrastructure as a service, you have something like Amazon EC2. You have Microsoft Azure VMs. Okay, so that is infrastructure as a service. And here in infrastructure as a service, you as a technology person, you get complete control and you have the ability to manage the infrastructure the way you want. Okay, because you're getting the raw infrastructure. Now you do whatever you want to do in it, right? That is how it works. But here in platform as a service, you don't get full control. But of course, both are better depending on the scenario. Okay, so basically, if you want to build something very lean, you don't want to worry about infrastructure, then you will go ahead with the platform as a service. If you want better control and if you are okay investing over a service team, a bigger team, then you can go ahead with infrastructure as a service. So depending on your requirements, both can be chosen. Okay, so talking about cloud. Okay, we had 3 main categories that we spoke about when it comes to cloud services. So it's better instead of cloud if I say cloud services like so. Okay, so this would be way better. So let me have it like this. Okay, so when we talk about cloud services over here, okay, so yeah. So when we talk about cloud services, okay, there are 3 main categories of cloud services. One is SaaS, which is software as a service. Then we have PaaS, which is platform as a service. And then we have IaaS, and it is infrastructure as a service. So this is important that you understand what is PaaS, why does it exist, what is SaaS, and what is IaaS. This is very, very, very important. Okay, and yeah, this is all a part of cloud. And these are the services of the cloud. Okay. Now, I spoke about cloud services because it's important that you understand this, because if you are moving towards cloud technologies, okay, you are going to hear these terms of software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service very often. So it's important that you're clear right now itself, right? Now, talking about cloud computing, I've already mentioned cloud computing is nothing but using internet-based services instead of owning physical computers. So you can compute on your physical computer as well, right? So you can get a processing power, you can have a physical computer set up, and you can deploy your own websites over there as well. Okay, it can be connected to the internet, but this is going to be cost, and you won't be able to scale fast. Tomorrow, if your application scales, you will have to add or buy more servers locally, right, and do the setup. And if something crashes, you will have to deal with it on your own. Okay, but with cloud computing, what you do is you make use of computers, storage, and software over the internet. Okay, and instead of owning and managing them on your own, someone else is doing that job of managing. You are just paying for what you use. That is what cloud computing is. I hope this is making sense, and this entire thing of cloud computing has given you some clarity of what is cloud, what is computing, and what are the different categories of services when it comes to cloud. Now let us talk about why cloud computing is there first of all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let us come over here. Okay, so what used to happen early on? So we'll start with what used to happen early on. So when we start talking about things like what used to happen early on, you will also get a gist of what problems people faced early on. Okay, so let's say we have a company. Okay, this is one company. Okay, and let's say they are building a product. Okay, so this is company A, and this is building a product, and this product can be anything like a website or an application. Now, to host this particular product, they are going to need servers, right? So what these used to do is, so in early days, they used to buy physical servers. Okay, so what used to happen is they used to buy physical servers. So I'll write physical servers. Okay, they used to buy physical servers. Now, physical servers, what is the drawback of physical servers? You have to buy physical servers. You have to store them in your office or like any sort of place wherein they can be stored. Of course, they will generate a lot of heat, right? So you need to install cooling. Okay, you need to set them up in the room. You need to provide them with electricity. You need to have security. So you need to make sure that they are secure and no one can hack into it. Okay, because if someone hacks into your physical servers, then it's going to be a problem and you are going to face problems on your website. Okay, and in short, they also need an IT staff to be maintained. So if your application scales, now let's say you bought physical servers, you launched an application idea was hit. Okay, and suddenly so many customers started coming in. Okay, now what is going to happen is, instead of having 1 or 2 servers, you're going to need 10 servers over here, or 5 servers, depending on the traffic you are having. You need to scale, right? Because the traffic is increasing and you need more capacity, more power. Now, what used to happen with time is, let's say if there is a big scale, or let's say there is a big sale. Let's say the sale is Black Friday. Okay, so it's a Black Friday sale and your organization is hosting it, and there are millions of users that visit your website and application. Okay, now, since so many people have visited the application, your application is going to go slow. So you will have to quickly scale the servers over here. Quickly scale servers, meaning you will have to add more server capacity. And suddenly you realize, like, from 5-10 servers, you have gone to 50-100 servers. These are all physical servers and you have bought them for managing the traffic that comes in during Black Friday. Okay. Now the problem is, there are so many people came on Black Friday. After Black Friday was over, everybody just like the traffic came down. So now suddenly you realize, like, you did not need so many servers. You just needed them for Black Friday, but you have already paid for these servers and now these cannot be returned, right? You have to keep it with yourself, right? Until and unless they will come only in use, until and unless there is a next sale, right? So what is the problem over here? The problem is, this entire process was expensive. This is how it used to happen in early days of the internet. The problem was, this was expensive. It was slow because you could not immediately scale and add physical servers, Okay, because if traffic scales, then there was a lag wherein the physical servers need to be bought in, they need to be connected, they need to be set up. There was an entire process that used to happen. So this was expensive, slow, and hard to manage, right? With increasing scale, it was hard to manage this infrastructure on your own. Okay, and this is where the era of cloud computing came in, okay, to solve these problems. Okay, so what happens is now this startup A. So we spoke about how this startup A managed things using physical servers. Okay, now also before talking about cloud computing, I'll also tell you something. This was the problem that Amazon itself faced for their e-commerce website, and I'll be coming to that. Okay, because this problem, when Amazon faced this problem for Amazon.com, that is when they launched AWS. Okay, and this was the entire story behind AWS, and I'll come to that in a while. Okay, but let me talk about this physical servers. So this startup A has bought physical servers. Okay, they scaled physical servers for a sale, which is Black Friday sale, and they realized that hey, they do not need suddenly so many servers, and so many servers that they have bought are of no use when there is no big sales going on. And of course, it was an expensive process. It was not easy to manage. Now, what would happen if this startup A launches or builds a product today? What it's going to do is, okay, so instead of going for a physical server, okay, it is going to, so I'll just make this small, and it is, instead of going through physical server, it is going to make use of server from the cloud, or not a server, it is going to make use of, I should say, some sort of computing power. It is going to get computing power from the cloud itself. Okay, that is what it's going to do. So here you have a cloud provider. Okay, there is a cloud provider who rents the servers. Okay, and this startup A has built an amazing product and a website, and it thinks it is going to work really well. So what it's going to do is to deploy. It is not buying physical servers like it did like 10-20 years ago. Right, but what it's going to do is it is going to go to a cloud provider and it is going to get some computing power. Okay, it's just like renting electricity, water, a house. It is going to rent the computing power, a server, a small computing power, and then it is going to launch the website or the product. Now, there comes a phase 2 wherein this startup realizes that the application is doing well. There are more and more customers joining the application and using it. So what it is going to do is it is going to ask for more power and more computing power. It is going to scale the website from the cloud. Okay, on the cloud. Okay, is it renting the servers? Not really. Is the startup managing physical servers right now? No. Is the startup paying for the servers upfront? No. It is buying or renting the computing over the cloud. Okay, who is managing the server over here? The cloud provider over here is managing the servers. Who is buying the servers? The cloud provider is buying the servers, and it is renting a part of the computing power to startup A. Startup A is not just the only startup who is renting this. There is another startup located somewhere in the world, which is startup B, that is also doing the job of renting from the same cloud provider. Then you have startup C. So there are many startups, many more startups who are doing the job of renting the computing power from this cloud provider. Okay, and this cloud provider has bought like some servers. Okay, and it is renting a part of which to this startup A, startup B, as well as startup C, and hundreds and thousands of more startups. So it's a business for this cloud provider wherein it's renting the computing power, storage power to these people who are launching, and it is providing the guarantee. This cloud provider is saying that hey, tomorrow if your application scales, you can start with a minimum capacity. You can get the server of minimum capacity if you're launching new. Okay, and have an option wherein you can scale up as and when your traffic increases. So let's say this startup A grows to 1,000 users or 100,000 users. Startup A is going to say, okay, I need to go to next level and I need to scale my website with a better power, because the website is going slow if many people are accessing it at one time, right? So it is going to say, hey, cloud provider, provide me with a better compute power. So cloud provider is going to provide it to A. Tomorrow it goes to 1 million users. it has million people using the website. So it is going to again upgrade its computing power. And that's how this startup does not have to rent any sort of computing power. It just has to, borrow it from the cloud provider. Now tomorrow, let's bring in the same scenario. Tomorrow, let's say this startup A is running Black Friday sale, right? Now what happens in Black Friday sales? There are 10 and 100 million people who start accessing this website that A has built, the startup A has built. Okay. Now suddenly startup A realizes that, hey, there are so many people coming over to the website, I need more power. So it is going to upgrade and scale its application by taking more computational power from this cloud provider. It is going to upgrade all its servers, and upgrade will be one click. It is just going to tell cloud provider that, hey, this server that I'm using, please upgrade it to this capacity. So this cloud provider is going to confirm, and it is going to upgrade this A's website to so and so capacity. Black Friday sales go really well. Startup A makes a lot of money. Now it is going to go to cloud provider and say that, hey, the traffic has gone now. Okay, it's no longer Black Friday now. So I need to downgrade my servers now. Okay, so cloud provider is going to downgrade the servers of A because the sale is gone, right? And it is only going to bill for the time which A has used, or which during the time which A has upgraded or bought more power. It is not going to charge for entire month. Okay, so it's basically pay per use for the time period when A had upgraded the servers. Let's say A upgraded the servers for 3 days. So cloud provider is only going to bill A for 3 days and not for the entire month. So this is important, and this is something that you understand really, really well. Okay. So yeah, this is about cloud computing, and I hope this gives you a gist of how cloud computing works. Okay, so here the benefit is for these startup A, B, and C, they could just rent the computing power online, okay, over the internet. If they need more power, it was just like clicking a button and instantly they got it. For example, here Black Friday sale happened, so they just upgraded the power. If they didn't need anymore, they could, downgrade and stop paying for additional computation that they had bought. Okay. There is no requirement of having cooling rooms or making sure that your servers cool down, electricity bills, or a full-fledged IT team. So these startups now, A, B, and C, can operate leanly. Okay. They can operate leanly with a small team. They don't need to take the headache of having a big team to manage their servers. Right? And this was different from how it was being managed early on, wherein you needed physical servers. You need to have your own power generator. So I missed talking about power generators, but if you have physical servers, you also need power generators, because if power goes on, you need to have some sort of backup over there. So it was very time consuming headache. It was a sort of headache, I would say, right? So with this approach, the cloud approach, okay, you have made your life easy. Okay, technology became cheaper because you are renting the technology. You are not buying the servers upfront. You are renting and paying for per use. It's faster to use. Upgrade, downgrade is easy, and you focus on your business ideas over here. Okay, and you're not focusing on managing and maintaining physical servers, right? So that is what cloud computing is, and that is how it came into picture. Okay. Now let me talk about AWS, and let me tell you how AWS came into picture. Now, first of all, what is AWS? Okay, so AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Okay, so it's basically AWS, Amazon Web Services. Now, what is this Amazon Web Services? Okay, so let me tell you, Amazon Web Services is a vertical within Amazon, and like like Amazon.com is their e-commerce website. Similarly, they have another business running there, which is Amazon Web Services, that is doing the job of, providing everything like the cloud infrastructure to the companies, basically. So here we spoke about cloud provider. So that is what AWS is. It's a cloud provider with which you can rent servers, virtual servers. You can rent storage. You can rent a lot of other things using which you can build and launch products today. Okay. Now, Amazon.com, okay, Amazon.com ran into this problem, wherein this problem that we spoke about of managing physical servers and scaling them up on Black Friday. Okay. So what I will do is I will, okay, if you come over here, so Amazon, okay. So I want to tell you one thing over here. Initially, there was no AWS. Okay. There was only Amazon. Okay. So let me first talk about Amazon. I'll just move this web services somewhere over here. So Amazon back in 2000s. Okay. This was around like 25 years back. Okay. What used to happen is Amazon was the largest e-commerce website. Right, it's still the largest e-commerce website, but back then also it was the largest e-commerce website, and they had built massive infrastructure for their own needs. Okay, there was no concept of this cloud computing and all in that era. Okay, so they had bought physical servers, they had a massive infrastructure for scaling Amazon. Now, what happened is, whenever there used to be big sales like Black Friday and any other sale, there used to be tons of people who used to visit Amazon.com, buy on Amazon.com, and suddenly they had to scale their server capacity, right? And when the sale was over, what used to happen is this traffic used to go away, and suddenly they realized there was no need of having so many servers when there is no sale, right? So Black Friday will happen. Think of Black Friday. Black Friday will only happen once in a year. What would Amazon do with the rest of the servers for the entire year, right? So the servers were useless. So what Jeff Bezos did is, Jeff Bezos is the CEO and founder of Amazon. Okay. So what he did is he was the CEO and founder of Amazon. Then he was then the CEO. Right now, from what I know, is someone else is heading Amazon, but that's fine. Okay. He's the founder of Amazon. So what he said to the team is, can we figure out a way to rent these additional servers for the rest of the years? For the rest of the period in the year when there are no sale running, because those servers are just lying there. Okay, can we figure out a way to make money out of these servers? That is what he told his team. And what team did is they built a website. Okay, they built a website using which they can like someone else can rent their extra computing power. So they had computing powers like physical servers, right? So they built a website thinking that someone will come and they can rent our computing power, okay, for some period of time. So that is how AWS came into picture, and they named the website and the service that they built as AWS, right? So AWS had S3, which is storage. It had servers, which they call EC2 instances. Okay, so they created this website and they started renting it to people and other startups, and that is how this business came into play. Okay, that is how. So the point of telling you this is you should understand the problem as to what was happening in early days. Okay, it's not like we are going back and we need to understand how things were happening early on, but it's basically I'm trying to explain as to why this thing exists, because that is when you will understand the importance of these things, because you have not seen the world before cloud computing. Right? If you're watching this, it's likely that you might not have seen the world before cloud computing, or if you were there, you are not aware of what happened in the internet world. Right? So I'm just trying to bring this point over here so that you understand the importance of cloud computing. And today what happens is, so earlier Amazon rented all these servers and all, okay, and then they thought of renting it, and that is how AWS was born. And suddenly they realized, like all the startup realized that, hey, they don't need to rent physical servers because that was a pain, and they started making use of Amazon Web Services, and it grew in popularity. So they actually solved a problem for themselves, which happened to be a problem that all the other startups at that time were facing. They didn't want to buy their own servers, and they let Amazon manage the infrastructure while they pay per usage. Okay, so a lot of startups makes use of AWS today. Okay, so yeah, this is what AWS is, and this is how cloud computing emerged. And looking at AWS, there were tons of other services that came into play, like Azure. Microsoft launched Azure, Google launched GCP, and today cloud computing is a default choice for new business. Okay, today if you're launching business, nobody thinks of renting physical servers, right? If you're working in a company, does your company rent physical servers or buy physical servers? No. They are going to choose a cloud provider, and they are going to host the website or any product that they are building on a cloud provider, and they are going to rent the computing power from them. right? So this is what cloud computing is, and this is how it emerged into what it is today. Okay, I hope this has been useful, and I hope this gave you some good insights about how what cloud computing is, and I hope this gives you a good understanding. So now it's time that we begin exploring AWS. So what I would recommend is head over to the browser, come over to your favorite search engine, whichever it is, and search for AWS. Now the moment you search for AWS, you're going to see few links pop up. And this is the first link that I see, which is of Amazon Web Services. So you can see right here, Amazon Web Services, which is aws.amazon.com. So Amazon.com is the e-commerce website, and AWS is a subdomain over here, as you can see over here. So I'll just right click, I'll open the link in the new tab. Also, when you search, you will see quite a few links over here, like sublinks. You can see management console. So this is the link to the management console. You have a generous free tier. Okay, I'm saying generous over here, right? So if you're a new AWS user, if you're signing up for AWS for the first time, they have an amazing free tier wherein you can get started with AWS at literally no cost. Okay, of course, you will be charged later on if you exceed the free tier limit, but getting started is absolutely free. Okay, there are certifications that are available. Okay, so there is a link for this: AWS Educate, training certifications. All of these are links. Okay, the first three are very important ones. So if you come over here, okay, let's understand what AWS is. Okay, so here you can see it stands for Amazon Web Services, and you can see over here they have now generative AI promoting over here, because generative AI needs generally a lot of compute power, database storage, content delivery. So they are basically positioning themselves as the default choice for generative AI applications. You can see there are a few tutorials that exist over here, and you can read more about AWS and explore their entire website. So there are a lot of use cases that you will see over here in the retail industry, AI industry, financial services. Okay, there are quite a few products. So if you scroll down over here, explore our products. Okay, you can see Amazon SageMaker, EC2, Amazon Elastic Cloud Compute. So this is a virtual server that you get in the cloud. This is that service, right? You have a storage service, which is a simple storage service. So if you want to store images related to your application and all, you can make use of S3, images, PDFs, receipts, all of that, right? You generally won't store it in the database, so you need a storage place. So EC3, or sorry, S3 is one of the service that helps you do that. Okay, identity and access management, so you can control access to your AWS account using this service. You have DynamoDB, which is a managed NoSQL database from Amazon. Okay, you have Amazon CloudFront, which is also a CDN network. AWS Transform. So there are tons of services. You can see show 15 more, and you will see more services load over here. You can see Amazon RDS. So this is the relational database. So you would host your application on the server, virtual server, which is EC2. You will store images on S3. Okay. If you have NoSQL database requirements, you will make use of Amazon DynamoDB. If you scroll down, if you need relational database, you will make use of Amazon RDS, right? Then you have Amplify, Elastic File System. There are tons of things. Okay, you can just explore them, and yet there is a link to show all over here. Okay, there are tons of services. Okay, and there are various regions that you can see over here where Amazon exists. Now this graph over here tells or talks about Amazon or AWS Global Infrastructure. Okay, so it's talking about the availability zones over here that exist with AWS. So you can see over here, it is globally available. You can see there are so many places at which AWS is available, and they have all their data centers there. Okay, so this is about AWS. If you scroll up, now one thing I'll tell you over here, this homepage changes quite a bit. Okay, so depending on when you're watching this video, you might see something else over here. Okay, because whenever I visit this website, I see something new over here. So they keep on constantly updating, changing the design of this website. So don't worry if you're not seeing something similar on your end over here. Okay, get started for free. So this is going to likely take us to our free tier page over here. Okay, and you can see Amazon free tier over here. Okay, and you also have the link to pricing over here at the top. So I'll just open pricing here. Okay, so let me open pricing. Okay, pricing opens like this, and under pricing also you have free tier. To access over here, you have pricing calculator, offers, saving plans. Okay, that's fine. So let's take a look at free tier. Now, basically, whenever you sign up for a new AWS account, you get you can get started using this free tier. Okay, and you can see over here that this is a free plan wherein you get around $200 in credit. Okay. Now, I would also want to mention over here that they have updated their free tier recently, is what I can see. Okay, so you're getting $200 in credits. Okay, up to $200. Okay, so when you sign in, so you can see over here, gain $100 at sign up. So the moment you sign up, you get $100 and up to $100 later on. So as you start exploring services and do certain actions within the Amazon ecosystem, okay, so as you can see over here, you get more $100 as you explore key AWS services. Okay, and there are no charges incurred unless you switch to a paid plan. And then you have a paid plan wherein you basically start making use of production ready workloads basically, and you get free usage on selected services, and there are all these features that you get access to. And then here you have all these services that are there to explore. Okay, so you can click on EC2 over here and you can read more about EC2 here. Okay, so every service has their own dedicated page that you can go and explore over here, and how others are making use of this service. Okay, and for EC2 they have a pricing tab as well. So every service has a pricing tab. Okay, now what is EC2? EC2 is nothing but the virtual server that AWS has. So using EC2, so let me go to overview. Using EC2, you can borrow a computing power in the cloud, and you can make use of it, and you can install your own softwares that would be important for you for running your application. So you can explore all the features over here. Okay, and if you go to pricing over here, now instance type, if you see, okay, I'm not going into details over here, but you can get different instance types over here, like Windows instance, Linux instance, Ubuntu instance, and so on. Okay, so here if you go, so there are 3 purchase options. If you go to on demand, okay, on demand, you are going to see the pricing over here. Okay, so for different regions they have different pricing, and you can see over here. Okay, so this is the pricing. Okay, all the data transfer, first TB per month, it's 0.09 per GP, and so on. And these are different regions wherein you have instances available. Okay, so you can borrow from any of the regions. Okay, so this is something I'll leave for you to explore. Okay, and yeah, we came over here from this pricing page over here. Now there was a legacy free tier as well that existed. Okay, this was before July 15th. So if you right click and open over here, this is the old free tier that they had over there. Now here you can see over here, they had few services that were available for 12 months. Okay, so you could use few services for 12 months over here, and some services were already free, or like always free. Okay, so they've updated the free tier is what I can see. So you need to explore this new free tier. Okay, but regardless, for learning this is going to be free because they have a generous free tier still. Okay, they're giving $200, which should be enough for learning and understanding AWS. Now, few quick things that I would want to highlight over here to keep costs in control. Number one is whenever you're creating any sort of resources within AWS, make sure you remember that resource and make sure you remember to delete that resource once you are done practicing. Okay, because AWS charges you per usage, right? As and when you use the service. So it's important that you delete those instances or whatever resources you have created in your account so that you are not billed for that. This is one important thing that you need to remember. All right. So with this, I believe you have a fair understanding of AWS now. Now, as the next step, what we would do is we would create an account with AWS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on create an account. If you already have an account, you can click on sign in to the console. So I'll say create an account over here, and you will be taken to this AWS console sign up page, right? And you will have to give AWS some information about or details about your account. So here we'll first enter the root email address. Now, what is the root email address? Root email address is the email address of the person who owns the AWS account. So it's going to be your email address, and I'm going to say abc@embarkx.com. Okay, this is just a dummy email that I'm entering, or you can enter abc@abc.com. Okay, I'm just entering dummy thing. Okay, and it's telling me account name, so I'll say test. Okay, it's asking me to verify the email address. So unfortunately, I won't be able to go ahead with this step because I already have an AWS account on my email. Okay, so I don't want to create a new one, but I'll just give you a gist of the process. You have to just enter your details. You will be asked for email address. You will be asked to verify the email address. The phone number will be verified down the line. You will be asked for entering the contact information, and you will be also asked to add a payment method. So you will have to add a card over here, and AWS will of course do a $1 verification on the card, and whatever amount is debited, it will be refunded. So $1 will get debited and it will get refunded. This is just to verify your card, and then your phone number will also be verified, and you will be asked which plan you wish to choose. So go ahead with the basic and free plan, not the paid plan. Okay, if you choose paid plan, it is going to be a problem. You will be charged for that. So don't select the paid plan. Just start with free AWS credits. All right. So I'm unfortunately not able to go through the sign up process, but it is a very simple sign up process, very user friendly, just like any other, just like signing up on any other website. Okay. And then once you sign up, you will be taken to the AWS console. Now, just to give you a gist of what AWS console looks like, this is the kind of console that you're going to see. Okay, they give you a nice overview of your AWS account over here, like what are the services that you've recently visited. So I use this account quite a bit, so you'll see some movement over here, or something over here in recently visited. But if it's a new account for you, you won't see recently visited over here. Okay, and there are some cost charges and all of this. Okay, so the billing information, all of this you would see over here. So this is where the goal is. After sign up, you should land over here. All right, I hope this helps. So now it's time that we understand a bit about AWS ecosystem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to search over here as the search query can be AWS infrastructure. And you are going to see this first link for AWS infrastructure, which I've already opened over here, right? Now, what is AWS infrastructure? So if you scroll down over here, you will see some terminologies over here, which I'm going to explain to you shortly. Okay, don't worry about that. But first of all, you'll see this terminology that AWS cloud spans 120 availability zones in 38 geographic regions. Okay, and it has announced plans for 10 more availability zones. So they are scaling the availability zones, and 3 more AWS regions in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Chile, and AWS European Sovereign Cloud. Okay, now this is as I'm recording this video. If you're watching this video at some different point in time, okay, it's likely that this information would have been updated, but this is where you will find the latest information. So right now it's there as I'm recording this video. It's there. AWS is there, is having 120 availability zones, and you can see all the availability zones over here. Okay, you can select South America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, Australia. Okay, and if you scroll down, you will see a lot more information. Now there are some terminologies like availability zone and all of this. Okay, so what does it mean over here? Okay, so for that, let me come over here to our favorite whiteboard. Okay, so what is AWS? First of all, think of AWS as a global network of data centers. Okay, so we are going to talk about few terminologies over here. Okay, first I'll just highlight the terminologies. Okay, or let me add a text box. So we are going to talk about data centers. Okay, I'm going to talk about AZS. Okay, this is nothing but availability zones. I'm going to talk about regions. Okay, so these 3 are the important things that we will understand. Okay, now what I was talking about AWS ecosystem. So what is AWS? You can think of AWS as a global network of data centers. Now, what is data center? A data center is nothing but a big warehouse which is full of servers. Now, what business AWS is in? It is basically in the business of renting a space or a little bit of computation on their server. right? So what they need warehouses of servers because it's a big business, right? So first thing that you should understand over here is data center. Now, what is a data center? Okay, a data center can be something like this. Okay, and it is going to have it is going to have a lot of servers. Okay, it is like a warehouse that will have a lot of servers. So that is what a data center is. So there will be a data center when it comes to AWS. So you can think of data servers as a building full of servers. Okay, I hope that analogy would make sense. Okay, what is data center? It's a building full of servers, and servers are nothing but computers. Okay, powerful computers. Okay, that is what data center is. Okay, now these servers, what they are going to do, they are going to store data, run applications, handle requests of the AWS customers. Okay, and AWS has thousands of data centers worldwide, right? Thousands of data centers worldwide. It's a big business for them, right? And they have tons of customers. As customers are growing, they're opening more and more data centers. Okay, I believe they also mentioned this somewhere over here. Like, so if you go over here, so they mentioned here, you can see they are launching 3 more AWS regions. Regions meaning the servers, nothing but it's servers. Okay, we'll come to regions as well. Okay, so here first thing you need to understand is data center. I hope this is clear. Then you have something called as availability zones. Now, what are availability zones? So what AWS does is it is going to group multiple data centers. So this is one data center, second data center. They're going to group these data centers into something called as availability zones. Okay, so these 2 data centers become availability zones, something like this. And this is going to be also called as AZ, right? Availability zones, AZS. Okay, so AWS groups data centers into availability zones, and each availability zone is going to have 1 or more data centers in the same city. And these data centers will be connected with high speed networks. Okay, now what is, you will ask me, what is the need of having this availability zone over here and multiple data centers? Okay, so what will happen is they will replicate the data. So across multiple data centers in the same city, the data will be replicated. Why is it replicated? So for example, if one data center goes down, for example, if something happens to this data center, let's say it goes down. So this data center will have all the data that was there over here. Okay, and this will serve as a backup. Okay, so if one data center goes down, or if some sort of problem happens like power failure or some sort of natural calamity or something like that, then others are going to do the job of keeping them running. Now I hope this is clear, the concept of data centers and availability zones. Now what happens is multiple data centers are grouped to form an availability zone, and multiple availability zones are grouped to form a region. Okay, so basically I'll duplicate this entire thing. So I'll just duplicate this like this over here. Okay, and I'll just reduce the size of this. Okay, so that it fits in the screen. Okay, so I'll also select these. Okay, so there are multiple availability zones that will group things. Okay, so here if you see, this is one availability zone, this is the second availability zone. Okay, and they together, what they will form? They'll form a region. So this is nothing but a region over here. Okay, so here there will be something called as region. Okay, now what is a region? A region is nothing but a group of availability zone in a specific geographic area. Okay, so for example, a region can be, so let me add over here, it can be North Virginia. Oops. Okay, it can be Mumbai, which is located in India. It can be Ireland, which can be located in Europe. Okay, so these are multiple regions. These are different regions that exist within AWS ecosystem. Okay, I'm just giving you an example of what all regions exist, why they exist. Okay, so here we started with data center. What is data center? That data center is the smallest thing that exists. It is basically, you can think of it like a building that is full of servers, computers, and multiple data centers come together and form availability zone. And availability zone is nothing but the group of data centers in a same zone, right? And data is replicated across these data centers. Then comes region. So multiple availability zones also form a group together to form a region, right? And there are multiple regions that exist like Virginia, Mumbai, Ireland. Okay, and yeah, this is what forms the global infrastructure of AWS. And when it comes to AWS, there are multiple regions that exist. Okay, there are tons of data centers that exist, and there are lots of availability zones that exist. Okay, so if you come over here now, all these terminologies will start to make sense, right? So AWS cloud spans 120 availability zones. What is availability zones? I hope you know this, right? The availability zones, AZS, right? So this is what availability zone is. Then they have 38 geographic regions as of now, and they are planning to come up with 10 more availability zones, right? And 3 more AWS regions in Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Chile, and European Sovereign Cloud. Okay, and you can take a look over here at different regions. Okay, so for example, Australia, you can see this is one region, and it has 3 availability zones, and it is launched in 2023, right? So one region has multiple availability zones as per the diagram over here, right? Can you see this? I hope this is making sense, right? And talking about data over here, okay, I also want to shed some light about data. Within availability zones, data is replicated across multiple data centers, right? So if there is data within, of course, there will be data within availability zones. So within availability zones, data is replicated across multiple data centers, and across availability zones over here, many services are replicating data across multiple availability zones for high availability. So for example, if one availability zone goes down, there is another availability zone for the backup, right? AWS is known for its high availability, right? It never goes down. Okay, there is a very good uptime that you get, and you don't have to worry about servers. So how are they managing this? They are managing with the help of replication. So here within a single availability zone, they'll have replication, and across multiple availability zone also they'll replicate the data. And if one availability zone goes down or some issue happens over there, you have another availability zone coming in for the backup, right? And this is within a single region, right? So this is what it is, and you can now go and explore this map over here, Asia Pacific. So there are 3 zones over here, and they have just launched in 2025. So they are launching more and more. You can see geographic regions, availability zones. They are coming in with more things over here. Okay, so they also have plans to launch even more. So you can just go and explore this entire world map over here. So if you click over here, this is South America. If you come over here, this is Mumbai. Okay, Asia Pacific, Mumbai. This is Hyderabad. Okay, there are tons of regions, availability zones, and data centers available, okay, across the globe. Now, there are so many regions. When you are launching your own product, your own website, how should you choose a region? Okay, of course, looking at this, it seems like you'll have to pick a region as to where you want to host your things. Okay, so the number one thumb rule is whenever you are picking the region, you have to make sure that you have to take into consideration the proximity to your users. For example, if you are launching a service in India, okay, you should choose a region in India because that will be nearest to your users. And this is to make sure that latency issues are not there. So for example, if you choose a data center in Mumbai or Hyderabad, that is going to be closer to your customers, right? And this is launched in 2022, you can see, and Mumbai was launched in 2016. Right? So proximity to users is one of the important factors when picking a region. Okay, you also have to make sure and take into consideration the AWS services that are available in that region. Okay, so one thing I would like to highlight that not all AWS services are available in every region. Okay, for example, we are living in an AI world now, right? So AWS launches AI services. So some AI services might not be available in a region in Australia or region in South Africa or India. They might first launch in US-based regions, right? So you have to check the services that are available in the region that you're choosing as well, okay? And also you have to take cost into consideration. For example, if you go over here, if you go to products and let us say you open EC2 over here. Okay, so you are launching a virtual server, you are launching a app, and you need a virtual server. Okay, now here there is EC2 pricing. So if you click on EC2 pricing over here, so every service has a different pricing. So you can go to that service page. This is the service page of EC2, as you can see, and you can take a look at the pricing for EC2. So you can see on-demand instances, savings plan, and spot instances. Okay, now if you scroll down, okay, there is no region specific pricing over here, but if you go on-demand instances, okay, and if you scroll down over here, you will see the regions. Like this service is available in which all regions and what are the costs associated with it. So you can see over here. So first of all, these are the instance types that are available for EC2. For example, this is the smallest instance, which is nano. You have micro, small, medium, large, and so on. Okay. If you scroll down a bit, okay, you can see here pricing based on regions. So you can see over here. So for US East region, this is the pricing. For some other region, this will be the pricing. Okay, and you can scroll down over here. Data transfer out and from Amazon EC2 to this regions over here. So if you are transferring data from this region over here in US East to any of these regions, then this is what the cost you will have to bear. Okay, so it varies depending on where you are and where you are coming in from. So for example, if I, not over here. If I go to, let's say, not US East, but let's say I go to Mumbai, you will see this is the pricing in Mumbai. Okay. And of course, if my customers are located in Mumbai, I would, or in India, I would want my data to be hosted here. So be sure to check, because the pricing is region specific and pricing would differ by region. US East is usually the cheapest. Okay. So be sure to check on your end. And also, how to choose the AWS region will, so there is another point that I would want to highlight. First is I spoke about proximity to users. That is important consideration, or that is important point that people consider when choosing AWS region. Okay, proximity to users, list of available services. Okay, you have to make sure whether all the services are available in the region you are choosing. Cost, because prices differ by region. And the last and fourth point that I would have is compliance and legal requirements. Okay, so some countries require data to stay within the country. For example, European GDPR, and there are some laws in India as well. India's data laws. So you will have to choose servers in India if you are basically storing some data that law is not permitting to move outside the region. Okay, so compliance and legal requirement is also a thing wherein you would have to choose the region within the specific country. Okay. So yeah, these are some points that determine as to how you can choose an AWS region. Okay, number one is proximity to the users. Okay, number two is the list of available services. Number three is the cost associated, and number four is the compliance and the legal requirements. Okay, I hope these things are making sense. So this is about the AWS ecosystem, where we spoke about availability zone, data centers, regions, and how choosing the right thing matters. Okay, I also want to talk about service categories over here. So whatever services AWS offers, of course, it is categorized. Okay, so there are tons of services. First is here, if you go to products, you will see all the categories here on the left hand side. Okay, so analytics related services, you will see under analytics tab. You have application integration related services. You have compute. So if you're buying some compute power in the cloud, you have different services like EC2, Elastic Beanstalk, ECS, EKS. There are tons of things. Serverless, if you want to go, you have Lambda. Databases. So for example, if you want to store data in the cloud, you have Amazon Aurora. You have for DocumentDB, DynamoDB, Neptune, relational database service, which is RDS. So this is a relational database services that you want to store. Okay, so for example, MySQL, Postgres related data you can store over here in RDS. Okay, you have developer tools over here. You have end user computing, a lot of stuff over here. So AWS divides all these services into service categories, and you should know, like, this is how the categorization works, because there are tons of services. So they have done a good job of categorizing everything. Okay, so yeah, I hope this has been useful. So I want to give you an overview of the AWS dashboard, and we'll also talk about one of the important things within this dashboard, which is AWS Billing and Cost Explorer. Okay, So we'll come to that. But first here, this is what you see when you log into AWS for the first time. Here on this icon over here, if you click, okay, you're going to see all the services. Okay. So you can see recently visited services. So these are the services that I have recently visited. Of course, you will see this as empty if you have a new account. But I use this account, so I have some services that I've visited. Some of your favorites, okay, and you can add services to your favorites. You have all the applications, all services over here, alphabetically sorted. So you can see the amount of services that AWS has. You can see, you can just scroll through. It's so much, right? They have a lot to offer. So there are tons, and you can basically navigate to any service of your choice. And then over here, you will see service categories. For example, analytics, application integration, blockchain related services. You will see compute, containers, okay, database related services. So all of this you will see here in the dashboard itself. Okay. Now coming over here, okay, here you will see some overview of your AWS account, like your billing information, the cost and usage, the health of AWS. You will see all your applications, the console home. Now what I want to talk about is the billing service, right? So what you can do is you can search for billing, or I already have billing and cost management over here. So I'm going to just open this, or you can even search for billing and cost management from here. You can see billing and cost management over here. Okay. Now if you go to billing and cost management on the home page, you're going to see the cost summary and the billing information, the total forecast, last month forecast, and last month total. Okay. Now this particular tool is really important if you are a developer, and even if you are an AWS engineer. So if you are a software developer or a DevOps engineer, this tool becomes really important, because you will be focusing on making sure you are not build unnecessarily. How can you improve costs, optimization, and all of that. Okay, so there are tons of tools that I'll give you an overview of within this particular thing, within this particular view. So here you can see billing and cost management home. It says, okay, I have some payment due and I need to make the payment. Also here, there are some recommendations. So here, if you see, we'll come to the recommendation. It's asking me to enable cost optimization hub and add an alternate billing contact and even create a budget. So I don't have budget created. Okay, so we'll talk about budgets as well. You can see trends over here. So if there is any sort of cost that are being applied to my AWS service, I'll see the cost trends, and you can group by service, linked account. You can group by regions as well. So if you want to see what sort of cost is coming region wise, so if you have your services running in multiple regions, you will see all of that appear. Okay. Now talking about region, if you scroll up over here, I've selected global. Okay, I'm on global region, but here you can see there are tons of regions that exist. Okay. Now for some reason, all regions are not available for my account, and here you are seeing there are 17 regions that were not enabled for this account. So if you click over here, it's saying to enable regions, go to manage regions here and click on the link at the bottom of the drop down and then click enable. So that will enable all the regions for my account. Okay, so this is something I can do. I'm not sure if this is something that you will see in your account. If the regions are locked, then you can go to manage regions and enable it as per the instructions that are shown. Okay. But here, the point is here you can see cost by regions, cost by services, and cost by linked accounts. Okay. Here you will also get tips and recommendations from AWS on cost savings. So for that, you need to enable cost optimization over here. Okay. So you need to enable that. And here you will also see cost allocation coverage. So here you are seeing different information. If you want to know something about any of the things over here, you can click on info over here and you'll see some documentation open here at the right. Okay. So I will collapse this, and here this is about home. Then you have dashboards over here. So if you click on dashboards, okay, this took some time to load. So here you can create your own dashboard. Okay, so if you need a billing dashboard to be created wherein you show some sort of metrics, you can click on create dashboard, and you can add select a date range. Okay, last 7 days dashboard. And you can add the widget over here, custom widget, predefined widget. So for example, cost widget is what I can add. Okay. So I can simply drag drop. I can click on this icon, these dots, and I can drop this cost cost widget over here. Okay, I can basically resize it. I can increase the size, minimize it. So it's completely you can configure. It's completely configurable. You can see over here, you can select all the properties over here. So this is how you can create a dashboard. So one dashboard can be for management level. One dashboard is for some sort of presentations. If you're having weekly stand-ups, you can basically create dashboard for that stand-up as well. Okay, so this is about dashboard, and here auto save is enabled. Okay, I'll save this. Okay, you can go to bills over here. So billings and payments. Now over here on the left hand side, you can see there are categories: billings and payments, cost and usage analytics, cost organization. Then you have budgets and planning. Okay, so we'll talk about bills first. So I'll just leave this page. Now here in bills, you're going to see basically all the bills that have occurred. So previous bills, current month's bills. You can manage payment methods. All of that you can do over here. Okay, then you have something called as Cost Explorer. Now there can be it's possible that Cost Explorer might not be enabled for your account. So if it's not enabled, you need to visit Cost Explorer for the first time, and then you will have to click on enable. So you will see the enable button, but for my account it's already enabled. Okay, so what is Cost Explorer? Cost Explorer is an interactive visualization tool that lets you explore past and forecasted spends. Okay, and so basically it's basically enables get a better understanding of the cost. It shows breakdowns by service, linked regions, usage types, and any sort of tags that you have done when creating the resources. Okay, so you have different options over here. You can select a date range. You can see granularity. So if you want to see daily, hourly, monthly, and you can see the division by service over here. So you can see cost in July over here broken down by service. So if for example, in July, the cost that occurred on your AWS account is $100. You can see that broken down into service wise. Okay, that is something you can see over here. So this is the cost and usage breakdown. So Cost Explorer is one service that I use a lot personally. Okay, because as a developer or a DevOps engineer, this is how you learn what is costing money in your AWS account. Where is my spend going? For example, if there are EBS snapshots that are spiking in US East Region 1, then basically you would know that using Cost Explorer. And what you can do is you can go to that region, and if you don't need that service, you can delete it. Okay. So yeah, this is something there. Cost Explorer is free to use. Okay, they give very detailed and interactive data. Okay, and to make better use of Cost Explorer, here you can see this breakdown by tag. So whenever you are creating resources, I don't have any tags right now in my account, but whenever you are creating any sort of resources, for example EC2 instances or anything, make sure you tag them. So tag is basically a user defined grouping. For example, if I created 5 instances for a particular project, so you can add the name of the project as a tag. Then if you created 5 more instances for some other project, you can add tag over there again. So basically here, if you group things by tag, you will know, okay, which project is costing me more. So all of that you can see over here. Okay, so yeah, this is what it is. You have saved reports, anomaly detection. You have free tier. Okay, so if you are into free tier, right now I don't have free tier. My free tier has expired. But if you are into free tier, you will see free tier usage over here. So if you want to keep a track of how much you've used from your free tier, you can come and see over here. You can export the data over here. Okay, so all of that is enabled over here. Okay, so this is about Cost Explorer and usage analysis. Then come over here in budgets and planning. So here AWS budgets. So this is interesting. Okay, now AWS allows you to set budgets on your account. Okay, so budgets are custom cost and usage thresholds that you are defining within your account. They can be monthly, quarterly, yearly. Okay, and what you can do is you can see over here. You create a budget. Okay, I'll just zoom in. You create a budget, and you will receive alert when you exceed that budget. Okay, and then once you receive an alert, you can respond with the action. So it's basically allowing you to keep a track of how much you're spending and basically making sure that you don't cross your threshold. Okay, so for example, you can create a budget. I'll say create a budget. Okay, and you have a temp. You can see over here there are two options over here. One is using a template. So here you can use the recommended configurations, and you can change some configuration options after the budget is created. But over here, this is customized. Okay, so here you can basically set everything yourself. Okay, for your use case. But using a template allows you to quickly set budgets instantly. Okay, so for example, let me select use a template over here. Okay, you will see over here there is zero spent budget. Okay, so what is zero spent budget? If you have an AWS account, you can create a zero spent budget, and if there is a first charge, like if the cost exceeds 0.01, you will get a alert. Okay, how would you be alerted? So you can select this. If you scroll down, you have to name the budget, and then you can enter the name of or your email addresses. So whatever your email address is, abc@ whatever your email address is, you can add that all the email addresses that you wish to get notified using comma separated values. Okay, and you can say create a budget. So whenever there is first charge that occurs on your AWS account, okay, you will get this over here. Then you have monthly cost budget. Okay, so here you can see create a monthly cost budget that notifies you if you exceed a threshold, right? So here you can see this is the name of the budget and here the amount. So if the monthly cost exceeds $100, you will get an email. Okay, then you have daily savings plan coverage budget. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's basically related to savings plan over here, like the name says. And what is saving plan? It's a flexible pricing options that lets you save as compared to on-demand resources. Okay, so let me show you what this is. So if I say daily savings plan AWS, so here if you come, you will see this page. Okay, so here what you're doing is you are committing to AWS that I will be using your EC2 instances for 3 years. Okay, and if you're committing to AWS, you get a discount. Okay, so rather than paying pay-per usage, or rather than going by pay-per usage model, you're going by a commitment with AWS. Okay, for example, if you're running a startup and you are aware, okay, you will need the services of AWS for 3 years. So you can commit to AWS using this savings plan, and you get a good discount. And sure, what this is doing is this particular budget that we are creating over here. Okay, it is basically allowing you to set the threshold in the savings plan. Okay, so if basically you reach 100% coverage of your savings plan, you will get an alert. Or if you reach 70%, you can change this value. So whatever percentage threshold you meet, you will be alerted. That is what it means basically. And then you have daily reservation utilization over here. Okay, so this will keep a track of how much of your reserved instances are actually being used each day, helping you to see if your prepaid capacity is fully utilized or if you're wasting money on unused reservations. So you can make use of this over here. Okay, generally zero spend budget and monthly cost budget, these two are the options that are used a lot. Okay, in the template view over here. Okay, so I'll create a zero spend budget. I'll just enter the email address. So I won't create it right now. Okay, but you can create it for yourself. You can create these two budgets. Okay, these two are very important whenever you create an AWS account. I always recommend everyone to create these two kinds of budget. So this will tell you, okay, you have you will be notified when the first charge occurs in your when your spends exceed 0.01. So okay, there is some service that is costing you money now in AWS. Okay, that is what this will tell you. And monthly cost budget will alert you. For example, if you have a monthly cost budget of $5 or $2, you can set this. And if it crosses this threshold, you immediately need to log into AWS account and see what's happening. Right? So these two other things. Then there is customized way which you can make use of. Now, using this customized way, you get additional controls over here. Okay, you can do customizations as to how you want to set budgets. So here also you're seeing like cost budget, usage budget, savings plan budget, and reservation budget. So you can select cost budget. Okay, you can go next, and then you will have the ability to set the budget over here. So here it's also showing you the previous spends. Okay, you can see. So you can create a budget over here, monthly, daily. So what do you want to say over here? So daily, if you want to set a daily budget, you can set over here. Okay, recurring budget, expiring budget. So this budget expires on this date. Recurring budget, so it will renew on the first day of every monthly billing cycle. Okay, and then you can have monthly as well over here. You can have quarterly. Okay, if you scroll down, this could be like you can have the budget scope. So whether this budget is for the entire AWS account for all services, or if it is for a specific AWS cost. So you can add that filter as well. Okay, and then you can go next. Okay, I didn't enter the name, so test is what I'll enter. Okay, and this is $10. You can go next. Okay, and you can see, so when I enter $10, you can see this graph also updated. Okay, so if I enter $1, for example, I have not been spending a lot of money on this. Okay, but you can see I've not been spending a lot of money on this account, but you can see over here this graph existed. If I say 0.5, okay, you can see this existed accordingly. So this exists, which is a good thing. Over here, budget amount, you can see, you can also set a threshold over here. I'm not going to do that. You can set a budget action. So what happens after the budget is hit? So you do next, and if you come over here, you can create alerts over here. Okay, so I can say edit, and you can add a alert threshold. Okay, so this is going to add a alert threshold when you hit 20%, and this is going to, when should this be triggered? So whether it if it hits the actual value or the forecasted value. So I'll say actual value, and you can enter the email address. So you can say courses.faisal@gmail.com, something like this. Okay, and you can say next, and you have the alert set over here, right? So I'm not creating this, but I'll just cancel. Okay, now every AWS account should have a zero spend budget, even if it's production account. Then also you should have zero spend, and I also recommend multi-cost budget. Okay, so I'll just create a zero spend account. I'll say courses.faisal@gmail.com. I'll just copy this email. This is a dummy email that I have. So this budget is created. You can see over here. I'll create one more budget, monthly cost budget, which will be for $2. Okay, I'll create this monthly cost budget for $2 is what I'll enter. Okay, and 2, I'll have this $sign. Okay, so it will create and it will alert me over here. Okay, this will get created. I'll create one more monthly cost budget, which will be for $5. Okay, so I'll just say $5 and dollars over here, something like this. Okay, and I'll have the email addresses over here. Okay, so there are 3 alerts or 3 budgets I have created over here, right? Can you see this? So this is how helpful it is. So yeah, this is about the cost exploration, billing management. Okay, this is a really important thing about knowing how you can control the cost when working with AWS. So now it's time that we begin talking about IAM. So what is IAM? IAM, as you can see, stands for Identity and Access Management. Okay, now, okay, let me explain what this is. So this is a service that simply defines who can do what in AWS. Okay, so understand this. AWS is an account wherein a lot of people will be accessing, and they will be using your AWS account for a lot of things. Okay, or whether they will be using your AWS account or the company's AWS account. Okay, whatever use case you are exploring this for, a lot of people will be accessing. And how do you control the access of people? So IAM comes to the rescue and helps you define who does what in AWS. Okay, for example, you will have a set of developers who would be working on AWS, and they would need access to your AWS account. So how would you grant access to them, and what sort of access level you would want to give them? Of course, developers should not be able to see billing information, your payment information, and all of that, right? So how do you control that? Now you will have another group of users, let's say your finance team. So finance team in an organization might want access to AWS account, and they might want to check the billing information and everything. They might want to manage the costs and billing, right? So they won't need the ability to, spin off EC2 instances or write code, push code to AWS. They won't need access to all of that. They just need billing information. So you can control that using IAM. Okay, you would have some people who are managers and they would need some administrative access in IAM or AWS account. So in IAM, you can control all of this. So whether within your teammates or within your team members, you have developers, you have finance team, you have administrators, managers. Who does what is defined and controlled using IAM. So IAM makes your life easy, wherein it allows you to manage identities and permissions. And it's a free service, but everything that you do in AWS is gated through IAM. Now, there are a few core building blocks of IAM that we should talk about. Okay, and I'll have them pasted here. So we have IAM users, we have IAM groups, we have IAM roles, and then we have IAM policies. So let us understand each one of them. So here you can see, this is what a IAM user is. Okay, so when you say IAM user, you are representing an individual person. Okay, so for example, if you want to give access to your AWS account or your company's AWS account to a developer, you will have to create a user in the IAM console, and that user that you're creating is known as IAM user. You might have testers, finance teams, so everyone, for everyone you will have to create a user, and a user will have a username and password. So that is something governed by IAM users. Okay, so a IAM user can have username and password. Okay, and they can even have console access. What I mean by console access is the dashboard access, which is this access over here. Okay, so IAM user can have console access as well, and they can have access keys as well. Now, what are access keys? Okay, now access key are some secret keys using which a developer can access AWS resources using command line. Okay, because developers usually will be working on command line. They might be running commands. They might be making use of Linux-based instances. So they might want to access AWS resources, and they can do so using access keys. Now, finance team might not need access keys because they won't be writing code, right? So access keys can be used by developers, testers, right? So this is about IAM users. Now, what are groups in that case? Okay, so let me talk about groups. First, let me explain you the problem as to why group exists. Okay, now see, if you are making use of AWS for your organization, you will have users that require same set of permissions, right? For example, all the developers will require same set of permissions. All the testers will require same set of permissions. And the entire finance team will require same set of permissions. Like finance teams might not need access to AWS resources, but they will need access to billing dashboard. And developers won't need access to billing dashboard, but they will need access to AWS resources, right? Testers might need some different kind of access, right? So in such cases, you have a collection of users that require similar permissions. Now, instead of assigning individual permissions to every user that gets created, what you do is you have a group created. Okay, let me explain this over here. So let's say here you have this user. Okay, he is a developer. Okay, and then you have a finance team, like a person who belongs to a finance team. Okay, now you assigned this particular user, let's say you assigned this particular user a role. Okay, and what is the role? He can, he can make use of, or you have assigned him some access where he can access EC2 instances. Let's say I'm giving an example over here. Okay, he can access EC2 instances. Now let's say, so this permission is given to this user with the help of policies. Now, policies is something that we have not discussed, but policies is a way using which you can define permissions. Okay, so what you did is you added this policy to this user against this user. Okay, now let's say tomorrow one more developer joins. Okay, so this was dev 1. Now we have dev 2 over here. So you assigned policies again. Okay, then you have dev 3. You assigned policies again to this particular user. Right? Now let's say you want to change something in for all the for the access level of all the developers. Okay, now you have to go to every user and update the policy over there. Right? If you want to make any sort of access change, or if you want to give some additional access. Okay, so this becomes cumbersome. Now this is fine if you have 3 developers. Of course, this is still cumbersome if you have 3 developers. But if you have a team of 100, 200, and you're creating 100, 200 users or 100, 200 devs, then this becomes absolutely crazy, a mess, right? So instead, what you can do is you will create a group over here. Okay, and this group will be called as developers. Okay, something like this. Okay. So you have this group called developers, or I will just shorten it. I'll call it devs, like so. So I have this group called devs, and instead of adding the permission to individual users, IAM users that are created, what I will do is I'll create a policy and I'll assign it over here. Okay, I'll say dev policy, something like this. Okay, I've assigned a policy over here. Okay, or I need to give EC2 access, right? So I'll write EC2. So I've given this access to this particular group over here. And what I will do is I'll add all the users then to this particular group, right? Something like this. So individual users won't have the permissions defined in them. Okay, so I'll just get rid of EC2 over here. Okay, and instead of defining it individually, what I would do is I would just drop them inside this group. Okay, so like so. Okay, so now they don't have policies assigned to them individually. What happens is they are, whenever they join this team, okay, they are automatically given the permissions that have been given to this entire group over here. I hope this is making sense. Okay, so there are 3 devs that have been added in this particular group. Okay, now if 4th one joins, I don't have to do anything. I have to just create a IAM user and add that particular person to this particular group. Okay, so rather than going by this approach wherein you are managing every individual user and you are assigning permissions, policies to every individual user, you create a group, you assign the policy to this particular group, and you add all the like-minded people or people with similar roles inside. Right now, tomorrow if I want to update and add one more permission over here, let's say along with EC2, I want to give S3 access as well. S3 is also a service. Okay, so let's say I want to give S3 access as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply add S3 policy over here to this group. And the moment I add it to this group, it's assigned and it's reflected to all the developers that were part of this group. Okay, so what is group? Group is a collection of users with shared permissions, and you can see the example over here. For developers, for developer group, you can have this policy power access user. For viewers, you can have read only access. Okay, so this group thing makes your life a lot more easier. I have also tried to explain this with the help of a scenario. Okay, I hope this is useful. Now let us talk about roles. Now what are roles? Now there will be scenarios, of course, when services, applications need temporary permissions. Okay, now let's say you have AWS Lambda. Okay, AWS Lambda is one of the service, and you have deployed something on AWS Lambda, and the application that you've deployed on AWS Lambda interacts with S3 or let's say S3 bucket. It interacts with S3 bucket. So Lambda is going to need S3 bucket permission for a while, right? So generally Lambda cannot access S3 because they both are different services. So in such cases, what you can do is you can create a role which is like a temporary identity, and it can be used by the AWS service, okay, when it's running. So basically your Lambda function will get this temporary role, and he will be assigned or elevated to this with the specific permission for a while when it's running, and it will be able to access the S3 bucket, and then once it's done, it would be back to normal. Okay, so that is what a IAM role is. Now IAM role is very similar to IAM users, just that it does not have any sort of credentials. So see, IAM user basically is an individual person that has username, password, access key, but and it also has a permission. IAM users, right? It has policies attached to it. Okay, but IAM roles has permissions, but it does not have permanent credentials. Okay, it does not have permanent credentials, because if you want to give this particular permission to a service, of course a service won't be able to log in using credentials, right? So that is where roles come into play, and you create a role basically to assign someone or any of the user, service or apps a role that it can be assumed when it's being executed. I hope this is making sense. And now let's talk about IAM policies. So what are IAM policies? So IAM policies are nothing but permissions that you define, and it can be used by roles, groups and users. Okay, so it can be assigned, and policies are usually defined using JSON documents. Okay, So it's a JSON like syntax that represent a policy. So yeah, these are some of the components or things that you should be aware of in IAM. I hope this entire thing has helped. So now it's time that whatever we have learned, we put it to action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating users, and we are going to make use of IAM and understand how it works. Okay. So here you can see I am in the recently visited tab over here, but I'm going to just simply search over here because you might not see it over there. So IAM, you can see, and here you can see a short description: manage access to AWS resources. And you can see top features like group users, roles, policies, access analyzer. I'll go to IAM. Okay. And this is the IAM console. And you can see over here, there are like it's a straightforward console over here. Okay. So first thing is, here you are going to see security recommendations. So this particular account has the root user has multi-factor authentication enabled. Okay. If you don't have multi-factor authentication enabled, I would request you to enable multi-factor authentication in your AWS account. To enable multi-factor authentication, you can see over here my security credentials. Okay, manage your access keys, multi-factor authentication, and other credentials. So you can click over this, click over here, and here you should see a way. So you can see over here multi-factor authentication, and I've assigned a MFA device over here. Okay, so this is done basically for myself. You can assign a multi-factor authentication device. You can add the device name, and you can basically add the way to authenticate yourself, and you can secure your account even more. Okay, so this is about multi-factor authentication. But coming over here to IAM, okay, let's explore this console. So first of all, what we are going to do is, here you can see under access management, you have something called as users, right? So here in users, I'll go, and here you can see I already have one user that has been created. Okay. So what I will do is, it's likely you won't see a user created over here. Okay. But what I will do is I'll create a user here. So this should be empty for you, like there should not be any user. So I'll say username, and username, I can see S3 user, for example. Okay, so this user is being created to access S3. Okay, so we have someone in the team who needs access to S3, let's say, or let us say the user is John. Okay, usually you will create the user with the name John. Okay, so I'll create John over here. Now here you can see this checkbox: provide user access to AWS management console. Okay, so if you're providing console access to a person, it's best to manage their access in IAM Identity Center. So I'll say provide. Identity Center is something that is new, and AWS is pushing us to make use of Identity Center. But I'll choose IAM, okay, because we are talking about IAM over here. So I'm creating an IAM user over here. Password. So it's saying auto generate the password. Okay, so I'll say auto generate the password, and or let me add custom password. So if you say auto generate the password, it is going to auto generate it for you. And custom password, you'll have to enter the password yourself. So I'll enter the password over here. So I've entered the password over here, and you can click on this to show the password. Okay. Now here you can see users must create a new password at the next sign in. So if you want users to change the password on the next sign in, you should keep this checked. But this is just for demo purpose. Okay. It's not an actual user that I'm creating, right? I'm not going to share this credential with someone. So this is just for demonstration. So what I will do is I'll keep this unchecked. Okay. I don't want my user, I don't want to change the password on next sign in, right? And I'll say next. But ideally in production environment or something, if you're creating a IAM user for a real user, this should be checked. It's a good practice. Now, once this is done, you will say next over here. Okay. All right. I'll say never. Don't save this. So you can see over here permission options, right? So add, do you want to add the user to a particular group? Do you want to copy the permission? Do you want to attach the policies directly? Okay. So I already have a group called S3 access. Okay. And you can copy the permission from some other user. You can attach the policies directly. Okay. So I'm not going to do any of this. All right. Right now, you can do it from here. Right. But I'm not going to do this right now. These are the options I'm showing you. I'll say next over here. Okay. It's asking you to review over here. So you can see John is the user. There is a custom password that we have given. Required password reset. No. Permission. We are not giving any permission. Tags. Okay. Now here you can add tags over here. to any AWS resources. Okay, like major AWS resources, you can add tags. Now, what are tags? Tags are basically key value pairs that are added by the person who is managing the AWS account, and they help you to identify, organize, or search for resources. Okay. Now, let me give you an example. You as a person, you will be working on multiple projects, right? And for those multiple projects, you will be creating resources in your AWS account. Let's say there is a customer A that is from, let's say there is a US based project that is going on. Okay. US based. And there is another project that is going on, which is Australia based. Okay. I'm just giving you an example. Or let's say there is an example, company A and company B. So you're working for two companies. Okay. And you have created resources in your AWS account for company A. And also you have created resources for company B. Right. So to categorize the resources, you can add tag. So for example, over here, I can say company name. Okay. And you can say company A. So this becomes helpful. Okay, so tomorrow if you want to filter this, or if you want to filter filter all the resources or see any data with the help of tags, you can of course do and add a filter, right? And if you want to see any sort of billing information, so billing dashboard also allows you to bifurcate on the basis of tags. I'm not going to add it over here, but this is how you can add. I'll say create the user, and the user will be created. You can see. So this is the console sign-in URL. This is a username and this is a password. Okay. Now what you can do is you can email the sign-in instructions to this particular user if you want to, right? You can download this as CSV file, or you can return to the user list. All right. What I will do is I'll copy this sign-in URL. I'll head over to another browser tab and I'll open incognito mode, and here I'll paste that sign-in URL. Okay. So this is a sign-in URL, and once I add the sign-in URL, you will see the account ID being added over here. Now, when this sign-in URL loads, you will see the account ID being added over here. Okay. So this account ID was a part of the URL. So what happened is this ID got pre-populated over here. So you don't have to add this. Okay. And now you have to just fill in your IAM username, which is John, and you have to enter the password. So I'll enter the password. So I've entered the password as well. Okay. Now understand one thing here. I didn't click on sign in using root user email because this user is not a root user. What is the root user? Root user is the user who owns the AWS account. This user is not the root user. So he is a normal user, IAM user that has been created. So I am just making use of IAM user sign in page over here. Okay. And I'm going to say sign in. Now, the moment I say sign in, I will be taken to AWS console over here. Okay. You can see over here, there is no recently visited services. Okay. Nothing over here. Access denied to cost and usage data over here. There's nothing that I can access over here around cost and usage. Okay. There is a short sort of tutorial that has come up. Okay. Which is fine over here. I don't want to access it. Okay. But let us come over here and let us try to access EC2. Okay. So can you access EC2? So you can see over here, there is no access. Everywhere you are getting error over here, right? If you try to launch an instance, okay. If you try to launch an instance, you are of course going to get an error. Okay. Let me go to S3. So if you go to S3, here also you won't be able to do anything. You can see over here. You cannot, so here, if you try to create a bucket, let me create a bucket. So on this particular form, what I did is I entered some dummy bucket name. Okay, you can enter any bucket name, dummy. And I scroll down and just clicked on create bucket. So the moment I tried to do this, you can see I got this error. Okay, so I'm not having the permission to create bucket over here. Okay, to be able to create a bucket. So you can see over here, failed to create a bucket. S3 create bucket permission is required. So view your permissions in IAM console. And this is a response that we have got. So this user, John, is not authorized to perform create bucket on this S3 resource. Okay. I hope this is making sense. So I don't have access over here. My access is very much restricted. You can see I cannot even see all the buckets over here. I cannot see the buckets listed over here. I can go to the page and I can see the S3 UI over here by Amazon. but I'm not able to create the buckets. Okay, now the, one second. So if I come over here, okay, create bucket button is there. They are not hiding this. I see the UI and everything. I can play around with the UI, but I cannot see the list of buckets and everything over here. Okay, so I hope this is making sense as to how you can just create a user over here. We created a user, okay, but the user is not able to do anything over here. So what I'm going to do is, let me come over here to this users. Okay, so cancel. I'll say return to the user list. Okay, he's saying you haven't viewed or downloaded this user password. Okay, that's okay. So I'll say continue. And now here you can see this John user that exists, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here under permissions. Okay, within this user, I'm going to go and under permissions. So I'm within the user. Okay, if you click on this user, I'm under permissions, and here there is no permission that exists, right? So I'll say add permission over here, and now you can see over here I can add him to the group. So there is already a group called S3 Access which exists. Okay, and this group already has Amazon S3 full access policy attached. Okay, so this is a group and the policy that I had created early on. Okay, this might not be there in your account, but this exists in my account. That's fine. Ignore this, but we'll attach the policy directly. So here, if you go to policy, you can see there are tons of policies that exist. Okay, now here you will see type. Type is AWS managed, AWS managed, AWS managed. What does this mean? So these are predefined policies that exist from AWS. So when you say AWS managed, it means that these policies are being managed and created by AWS itself, right? So that is done, and this is AWS managed. So what I will do is, if you can expand this. So if you expand this, you are going to see this JSON over here, right? And this JSON defines this policy, right? Administrator access. So you can see administrator access. So if you want to create an admin user, you can see over here, this policy will provide full access to AWS services and resources. So you can see over here, version is this. Okay, statement, within statement you are saying allow, effect is allow, this effect key says allow, action is star, and resource is also star. So allow, action defines what the person can do, right? Or what the particular resource can do. So action says star. Star means it's a wildcard. It says give access, allow him to do everything. And resource meaning which resource, like S3, EC2, which resource are you giving access to? So resource is also star, which means he can do everything everywhere. So that is what administrator access is. And it is defined by AWS itself. Okay. So be sure if you're assigning this to someone, he will be able to do everything on all the resources. So be sure of that. Okay. This is administrative access. If you see administrative access amplify, you can see effect allow, action. So this is all the action. So you can create stack on CloudFormation service. You can do all of this. CloudFormation is a service. Okay. You can do all of this on CloudFormation, and resource is this. Okay. So resource is also mentioned. Okay. So this is the policy. These are policies you can explore. So we want to assign S3 policy. So I'll say S3 over here. And you can see over here, there is a Amazon S3 full access policy. You can see this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this to this particular user. I'll say next. Okay. And I'll add this permission over here. Now, the moment you assign this permission to this particular John user, I'll go over here and I'll refresh. Okay. So earlier I was not able to see, I was getting the access denied, but now you can see there are no buckets, right? Earlier I was getting an error. Now it says there are no buckets, and this sidebar has also come in. Earlier the sidebar was also not being displayed, right? So permission changed things, and now you can click on create bucket. Okay. Or if you go to S3, Amazon S3, you'll see create bucket over here. So you create bucket, I'll enter any name. I'll say my dummy bucket, and I can say any sort of name over here. Okay. Now, whenever you are creating a S3 bucket, remember that the bucket name has to be unique across Amazon globally. Okay. So that is something I've done. And here, if you say you're saying block public access, that's fine. I'll say create a bucket. I won't make any changes to the bucket settings, but I'll just create a bucket. So you can see the bucket is created now, right? So this is how the permission things works. You just added this permission over here. Now let us come to user groups. Okay. Now there is already a group created called S3 access. Okay. What I will do is I'll just delete this group because this might create some confusion. So I'll just delete this. I'll say S. So you can see how deleting is a is a sensitive action. So, it's asking me to type something so that I don't, delete something accidentally. So this is deleted. Now, what is group? A group is a collection of IAM users and you can assign permissions to that group. So you will create a group. I'll create a group called developers, okay, or image uploaders. Let's say image uploaders, and they need access to S3, okay. So this is my group name, image uploaders, and I'll add John to that particular group, okay. And I will select search for S3 full access over here, and I'll say create the user group. So whoever is added now in this image uploaders will have complete access to S3. Now, if you go to users and if you click on John, you will see he's part of this group, right? And he'll still have access to AWS S3. So if I refresh, he'll still have access to AWS S3. Nothing changes over here, okay? But I can change the access. Let's say tomorrow requirement changes, okay? I want to update the permission for all the image uploaders from S3 full access to that of, let's say, I just want to give them S3 read-only access. So I can come over here and I can go to user group, image uploaders, and here instead of permissions, I'm going to add a permission, attach policy, and I'm going to say S3 read-only. So I'll say S3 read-only access. I'll attach the policy over here, okay. And S3 full access, I'll get removed. Okay, so they don't have full access to S3, but now they have only S3 read-only access, which means they cannot create the buckets. Okay, it's taking a bit of time. I don't know why. Okay, but it should ideally. Okay, you can see S3 read-only access. Okay, so now what this means is the user John also has S3 read-only right now. Let me refresh. Okay. So, okay, he has full access also because that was attached directly. So you remember when creating the group, before creating the group, we had attached the policy directly to this particular user. So you can see over here attached wire directly, and this is coming in through group, right? So what I will do is I'll get rid of this. Okay, we'll have to get rid of this. But now if you come over here, okay, and if you refresh, read only meaning he can only read the buckets, but he cannot create the bucket. So let me create the bucket. Let me try creating. So I'll create this dummy bucket and I'll say create. So now you can see create bucket permission is required. Can you see? But he can see the buckets. He can see the buckets. Okay. But he cannot create buckets. So you can see how a permission change at group level just impacted everyone. Now if you go to user groups again, image uploaders, and here in permissions, I'll add the permission. I'll attach policy. I'll say EC2 over here. Sorry, not EC2, S3 full access. And I'll attach this policy here. And I'll get rid of that read only, or we don't need to get rid of read only. You can get rid of read only as well. Okay. So I'll get rid of read only. Now if you go to users and if you go to John, you'll see S3 full access is being added by a group, right? So this is fine. Now if you come over here and if he tries to create the bucket, it will get created. So I'll create the bucket. I'll say create. You can see the bucket will be created, right? So this is how groups make your life easier. If you have hundreds, thousands of developers, you can create a developer group, and developers usually need same set of permissions. So you give them that specific access, like access to CLI and whatever. Okay. And if you have finance team, you can create a group finance team. So it makes management a lot more easier. Okay. You also have roles. Okay. So if you come over here, you have roles from where you can create roles over here. So I already have few roles created. Okay. Which is fine. But you can create roles over here, and you can see over here, role is an identity you can create that has specific permissions with credentials that are valid for short durations. Now these credentials you are not creating, but it is assigned by AWS itself. Okay. So role over here, you can create the role for the trusted entity type. So here, if you click on this info, you will also get the documentation. Okay. So here you can say AWS service. So what are you creating this role for? Okay. So are you creating, so let's say we want a role to be created for EC2 instance. So you can say over here, allow EC2 instances to call AWS services on your behalf. Okay. Allow EC2 instances to call AWS system managers on your behalf. So you're creating this role, okay, allows an AWS service like EC2 Lambda to perform actions on this account. So you're creating a role for EC2. Okay. If I want to create a role for Lambda, I'm going to select Lambda. Okay. You can see over here, right? You can even select AWS account over here. That is something you can do as well. Now this option is for users, or for allowing a user or a service in a different AWS account to access resources in your account. For example, you would have a central IT account, okay, which is being managed by IT team, and a separate production account, right? So there are two AWS accounts. Now a developer in IT account needs to be able to deploy updates to the production account, right? So what you would create a role in the production account and set the trusted entity to the IT's account ID, and this allows the developer to switch roles from their IT account to the prod deployment role in the production account. Okay, so this is like giving your keys basically to a trusted a person who is from other account. That is what this option is for. So you have to like add another account over here and do all the configurations. Web identity. Okay, now this is for allowing users who are authenticated by a public identity provider to assume a role, right? So example, you have a mobile app that uses Google or Facebook for user logins. So when the user logs in, you get a temporary token from the identity provider, and they can use this token to assume a role and gain access to your AWS resources, right? Like uploading photo to your S3 bucket. Okay, so you can select the provider over here and you can go ahead with that. SAML federation. Okay, so this is similar to web identity, but it is used for corporate identity providers and is the most common way to integrate with companies' internal login system like Microsoft Active Directory. Custom trust policy. This is the most advanced option, and this allows you to define a custom JSON policy to define trusted entity with more granular control and specific conditions. Okay, and we spoke about this AWS service. Okay, this is for granting permissions to AWS service to perform actions on your behalf. So I've selected Lambda over here. We'll go next. You can add permissions over here. What sort of permissions? So if I want to give S3 bucket access to Lambda, okay, then this is something I'll create, and then you can name the role. Okay, so you can say Lambda S3. Lambda S3. Okay, so you can see description, it's auto-generated. It says allow Lambda functions to call AWS services on your behalf, and this summarizes everything. Okay, Lambda S3, so you can say Lambda underscore S3, and you can see the trusted policy over here. Okay, and here you have the permission policy. You can add tags if you wish to, and you can create the role, something like this. Okay, so the role is created. You can see Lambda S3 over here is being created, right? So these are roles, and if you go to policies, you will see all the policies over here. You can see all the policies. These are all AWS managed policy. Okay, now there are AWS managed, and you can even create your own policy. So you can see over here policy editor. So you have policy editor, so you can do visual editing. You have actions. You can do JSON editing as well. Okay, so let's say I want S3. Okay, so S3. I'll select S3 and what I want to do. So what all actions I'm creating policy for. So list grants, list access points, list buckets, and list jobs. Now you can even read more about these rules over here. List jobs. So if you click on list jobs, it says grants permission to list the current jobs and the jobs that have ended recently. Okay, so I'm creating a permission which allows list access grants, list points, list buckets, and list jobs. These 4 roles are only being assigned over here. Okay, you can even so this is for access level list, this is for access level read, this is for, if you scroll down even further, this is for access level read or write. Okay, so I can allow someone to create access point as well. So you can go more granular. You can select so many information. You can also add the permission for tagging over here, delete object tagging, delete job tagging, all of that. Okay, so you can just explore this. There are tons of roles over here. Okay, and I've selected S3 over here. So you select the service, you select the permissions or actions over here. Okay, actions. So I'm selecting actions. Then you add the resource over here. Okay, so what are resource types? So you can say bucket over here. Okay, and you will add the resource. Oops. So bucket name. So which bucket name is this for? So whatever bucket name you have created, that is something you will have to add. So let's say I add for this bucket. Okay, so it is for this resource. So I'll add like so. Okay, and I'll say add the resource. So you can see these actions on this resource is what this permission is being created for, right? And you can add a condition as well, which is optional. Okay, now there's a visual editing over here. So if you can see visual editing here for this entire thing. Okay, but generally JSON is preferred if you are a developer. Developers love working with JSON, you know, so they prefer JSON. And you can even add more statement. So this can go even more complex. You can add more statement and you can create your own set over here. And then once you create, so let me create over here. I'm creating a temporary, I'll say temp over here. Okay, this is temp, and I'll say create a policy. So this will be created. And now if you see over here, okay, let me search for temp. So you can see this is customer manage. So everything was AWS managed. This was customer managed because customer has created this. You can see this, customer has created this, right? And you can assign this to any user just like any other policy. So you can come over here, you can add the permissions, and here you can see attached policy. You can say temp, you can see customer manage, you can assign this. Okay, so yeah, this is about policies and how things can be done with policies. Now I also want to talk about some best practices that you should keep in mind when managing users and everything for your AWS account. So first thumb rule is never use root account. Okay, we are using root account till now, but you should never use root account. And the best practice is you create a admin user and use that one. Okay, so what we are going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to user, and here I'll create a admin courses over here, something like this. Select this. Okay, I want to create an IAM user, and I'll have a custom password. Okay, I'll enter my password here. So this is the password. Say next. Okay, and I'll attach policies directly, and I'll give this user administrative access. Okay, I'll say next, and I'll say create the user. Okay, now I have these console sign-in details. I'll copy this and save it somewhere safely. Now once I've saved all the details, okay, what I am going to do is I'm going to log out of this this user. Okay, and I'm going to make use of that account. Okay, so let me log out over here. Let me sign out. Okay, and I'll sign in with the other user. I'll paste in the URL that I got, the sign in URL. Okay, and okay, this is reloading. It's taking a bit of time. So yeah, the page loaded and I entered my credentials, and I'll say sign in. Now I'm not signing in as a root user, but I'm signing in as a admin user. And you can see I'm logged in now. So I'll use this account going forward. And this is very, very important that you use this account because it's generally not a good practice to use your root account. Okay, root account is only for billing, security, because anything can be done from your root account, and AWS is such a thing wherein if it lands in wrong hands, like if your account get hacked or something, okay, your account can even be deleted. So that's the thing. Okay, so never use root account is the best practice. Okay, set up IAM users or group always and assign them the right permissions. Okay, for example, if you have developers, you can create a user or a group. A group for developers, for testers, you can create a group and you can assign them the right permissions. Also make use of multi-factor authentication everywhere. Now what that means is whenever you are creating account, enforce multi-factor authentication on all the IAM users with console-based access. This is really, really important. Security not only begins with you, but also people who are using your organization account should make sure that their accounts are secure and they are making use of multi-factor authentication. Also follow the principle of least privilege, which means that don't give administrative access to everyone just because it's convenient. Okay. Instead, create narrow policies. Like, for example, if someone needs access to EC2, like just give them access to EC2 and deny IAM changes. Okay. So narrow down the policies. This is how you will keep your AWS account really, really secure. Okay. So I hope I have been able to explain all of this and you have got a good gist of IAM as a whole. I hope this has been insightful. So when it comes to cloud world, you will often hear this term called root account hardening or account hardening. Okay. So what does hardening mean? So hardening basically means making an account or system or an application more secure by reducing its weakness. So when it comes to AWS, how would you harden the AWS account or your AWS account basically? Yeah. So understand this thing, when it comes to AWS account, the most important thing is the root account that you have access to, right? And root account is the most important account because it has access to, everything. It has access to billing information. It has access to all the other users basically. So you can manage and control all the other users. It's basically the master of that particular account. Okay. Now, when you say you want to harden this particular AWS account, you mean you want to make or make it much more secure. Okay, so I'll just share some more steps over here. So here in the root account, so let's say if you're logged in through root account, here right now I'm logged in through my IAM user. So if you're logged in through root account, come over here, go to security credentials. Now inside security credentials, you are going to see everything over here. Okay. Okay, it's asking me for rating. Here you are going to see everything, and here you can see this warning over here that I have not enabled multi-factor authentication. So if you have not enabled multi-factor authentication for your root account, you should definitely do that, and you can assign a multi-factor authentication over here. Okay, it will take you over here, and you can select authenticator app or whichever way you want to do. So if you're using Google Authenticator, you can make use of this. Okay, but there are other things over here. So access keys, if you have any access keys created against root account or in root account, you should immediately delete it or revoke it. Okay, that is very, very important, because using access key, what can happen is anyone can gain access to the root account, and it can be extremely dangerous if it's leaked somewhere. So it's best to delete or revoke any sort of access keys that are there associated with the root account. Okay. Also, I spoke about a multi-factor authentication. You have to assign a multi-factor authentication device over here. Okay, I would also recommend, like, if you have a IAM account, you should also assign a multi-factor authentication device here as well. It's totally up to you. Okay. Also, in the root account, I'll tell you, you have to go over here in account, and here I think you have to click on account, and let me go to account. So it's loading. Now, since I'm logged in using IAM account, I'm seeing over here, I don't have this permissions over here, right? So it is okay. But in the root account, if you're logged in through root account, you're going to see the contact information and alternate contacts. So I would recommend you add billing, security, operations related contacts over here inside alternate contact. Okay, let me show it to you. So I've logged in through my root account, and you can see over here there within alternate accounts, you can see billing contact, operations contact, security contact. So I would recommend adding all of this if you are setting up a company account. Okay, you should enter name, title, phone number for each contact and save it. Okay, because this would be helpful, right? And also add your contact details as well. Now your contact details are supposed to be added in this contact information. Okay, so I'm not showcasing my contact information over here because in root account, my contact information is already added. Okay. So I've switched over to the IAM user over here. Okay. So this is what the concept of root account hardening. It's very important to keep your root account secure.